What if the two most powerful words Jesus ever spoke have been completely misunderstood for 2,000 years? When he declared, "I am," was he simply claiming to be God? Or was he revealing something far more radical about your own divine nature, something so transformative that grasping it would shatter every belief you've held about who you are and what's possible in your life? Think about this for a moment. Throughout history, billions of people have repeated Jesus' words, built churches around his teachings, and created entire theological systems to explain his divinity. Yet what if we've been looking at his most profound declaration from entirely the wrong angle? What if "I am" wasn't meant to create distance between humanity and the divine, but to dissolve it completely? Has this ever happened to you? You're facing something overwhelming, maybe a diagnosis that changes everything, a financial situation spiraling beyond your control, or a relationship that's falling apart, and you find yourself praying with desperate intensity. You're pleading, bargaining, hoping that somehow your words will reach a God who feels impossibly distant. That sensation of cosmic separation, of being a small, powerless being trying to get the attention of an infinite, unreachable creator, it's not just uncomfortable. According to the hidden meaning behind "I am," it's the fundamental illusion that keeps you trapped in cycles of fear, lack, and limitation. Most of us have been taught to approach the divine from our knees, as flawed humans reaching toward a perfect deity, as spiritual orphans begging a distant father for scraps of blessing. We worship from afar, we follow obediently, we hope desperately, all while operating from a single devastating assumption: that we are fundamentally separate from the source of all life, wisdom, and power. But before we begin, please hit the like button and let me know where in the world you're watching from today. It's always fascinating seeing who's joining us from around the world. And if you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of our future videos. Now, here's where everything you thought you knew begins to unravel. When Jesus stood before the crowds and proclaimed, "I am," he wasn't asking you to worship him from a distance. He wasn't establishing himself as the exclusive gatekeeper between humanity and divinity. He was doing something infinitely more, dangerous to every religious system that would later claim to speak in his name. He was pointing directly at the divine nature that exists within you right now, in this very moment, regardless of whether you've ever acknowledged it. Stay with me until the end of this exploration, because what you're about to discover might completely transform not just how you understand Jesus' words, but how you experience your own existence. The implications of truly grasping the hidden truth behind "I am" extend far beyond theology into the practical reality of how you pray, how you heal, how you create, and how you navigate every challenge you'll ever face. The revolution isn't out there in some distant heaven. It's been inside you all along, waiting for recognition. And that changes absolutely everything about the spiritual journey you thought you were on. Now I want to go even deeper into this topic by examining something most people completely overlook when they encounter Jesus' most controversial statement. In John 10:34, he made a declaration so explosive that it nearly got him stoned on the spot. He looked at the crowd and said, "You are gods." Not, "I am God and you should worship me." Not, "I have special divine status that sets me apart from all of humanity." But you, ordinary, flawed, struggling human beings, you are gods. Let that sink in for a moment. This wasn't poetry. It wasn't a metaphor designed to inspire you or make you feel better about yourself. Jesus was pointing to an actual truth about the fundamental nature of human identity, a revelation so dangerous to established power structures that religious institutions have spent 2 millennia trying to obscure it, dilute it, explain it away as something he didn't really mean. Behind the scenes of every theological debate, every church doctrine, every interpretation that places divinity safely outside of you and keeps it there, is this uncomfortable reality. If people truly understood what Jesus meant, the entire system of spiritual intermediaries would become unnecessary. Think about the impact of that recognition. If you genuinely grasped that divine nature isn't something distant you're reaching toward, but something fundamental to what you are, how would that transform your decisions? How would it change the way you approach challenges, the way you see your capabilities, the way you understand your own consciousness? The transformation wouldn't just be theological, it would revolutionize your entire experience of being alive. This is where most people miss the hidden truth at the heart of Jesus' teachings. There's a massive distinction between following someone and becoming what they've realized within themselves. Following is what we've been taught to do. Walk behind Jesus, imitate his actions, repeat his words, hope that somehow our devotion will earn us a place near the divine. But becoming is something entirely different. It's the recognition that what Jesus discovered about himself is equally true about you right now. Not as potential, not as something to achieve through years of spiritual effort, but as present reality waiting to be acknowledged. If this resonated with you, consider subscribing. We explore these transformative truths that reveal your divine nature and what Jesus actually meant. Not diluted versions, but radical teachings that change everything. The journey from following to becoming represents the difference between perpetual seeking and immediate awakening. One path keeps you forever chasing something you believe you lack, always one more prayer away, one more good deed away, one more spiritual practice away from finally arriving. The other dissolves the entire framework of separation and reveals that you've never actually been apart from what you've been seeking. The question that determines everything isn't whether you can follow Jesus' example closely enough or believe the right doctrines strongly enough. The real question is this: are you ready to understand what I am actually reveals about your own divine identity, and are you prepared for how that understanding will completely reshape your relationship with prayer, healing, abundance, and every aspect of your existence? If this is beginning to shift something in how you see yourself and your relationship with the divine, write in the comments, "I'm ready to understand." Here's something that reveals the hidden truth behind Jesus' entire approach to the divine. If you pay close attention to how he interacted with what he called the Father, you'll notice something remarkable that exposes the fundamental difference between his consciousness and the way most of us approach prayer. Jesus never begged, he never pleaded, he never bargained or negotiated like we do when we're desperate for intervention. Think about the contrast here. When you're facing a crisis, what's your natural response? Most of us immediately drop to our knees and start trying to convince God to help us, as if divine assistance is something we need to earn through the intensity of our desperation or the perfection of our words. We pray from lack, don't we? We bargain, promising to be better, to attend services more faithfully, to change our ways if only this one situation works out. We approach the divine like we're trying to make a compelling case to a judge who might rule against us, as if we need to persuade a reluctant deity to care about our suffering. But Jesus operated from an entirely different consciousness, and understanding this distinction is what unlocks the real meaning behind I am. When he spoke, whether calming storms or healing the sick, he did so with unwavering confidence. This wasn't arrogance or some special supernatural privilege that separated him from the rest of humanity. It was the natural expression of someone who fully understood his relationship with divine source, someone who recognized that the divine wasn't something external he needed to reach, but something fundamental to his very being. This is the transformation in mindset that changes everything. Behind the scenes of Jesus' every decision and action was this unshakable recognition of his divine nature. When he declared, "I am," he was speaking from that place of complete awareness. And here's what most people miss. He was desperately trying to help us see that this same divine nature exists within us. It's not something you need to acquire through decades of spiritual practice or earn through flawless behavior. The journey toward understanding this isn't about becoming something you're not. It's about recognizing what has always been true beneath all the conditioning, all the beliefs about unworthiness, all the false ideas about separation that have accumulated throughout your life. Think about the impact of this revelation on how you approach your own existence. What if divine nature isn't a distant destination you're struggling to reach, but your original state before you learn to see yourself as small, limited, and separate? What if every prayer that begins with "please" reinforces the very illusion of disconnection that creates your suffering? When this recognition truly dawns in your consciousness, not just as an intellectual concept, but as a lived reality, everything shifts. Your prayers transform from desperate pleading into conscious acknowledgement. Instead of trying to get God's attention from a distance, you begin recognizing divine presence that's already operating through your very awareness, your breath, your existence in this moment. The hidden truth Jesus was revealing is that you're not a human trying to reach God. You're divine expression temporarily experiencing itself in human form. That distinction isn't philosophical wordplay. It's the difference between a lifetime of exhausting spiritual effort and the immediate recognition that dissolves the search entirely. If this understanding is beginning to change how you see prayer and your relationship with the divine, write in the comments, "recognition, not pleading." Now let me share something that will completely shift how you understand your relationship with the divine. Jesus was pointing to a threefold reality about your actual nature right now, in this very moment, that most people never grasp because they're too busy trying to reach something they believe is outside themselves. Look at creation for a moment. Every flower that blooms in spring, every star burning millions of light years away, every breath of wind moving through the trees, none of these are separate from the creative force trying to become divine. They already are divine expression in different forms. They're not striving, not earning, not begging for permission to exist. They're simply being what they are, which is the divine manifesting through countless unique expressions. Here's the revelation that transforms everything. The divine expresses through you in exactly the same way. Your thoughts, your feelings, your creativity, your capacity for love, your very consciousness, as you're reading these words right now, none of these are separate from the creative force that birthed the entire universe. They are expressions of it, manifestations of source energy taking form through your unique perspective and experience. This isn't spiritual poetry designed to make you feel better. This is the actual structure of what you are, the hidden truth behind your existence that changes every decision you make once you truly see it. The impact of understanding this cannot be overstated because it dissolves the primary illusion that creates all human suffering, the belief that you are fundamentally separate from your source. Behind the scenes of every anxious thought, every experience of lack, every moment you feel limited or powerless, lies this single misperception. And when that illusion begins to dissolve through recognition, your entire experience of life undergoes a complete transformation. Let me give you a metaphor that makes this crystal clear, one that once you truly see it, you can never unsee. Imagine standing on a beach, watching the vast ocean stretching to the horizon. You see countless waves rising and falling, each one unique in its shape, its height, its movement. Now here's the question that unlocks everything. When you look at a wave, what are you really seeing? Are you seeing something separate from the ocean? Something that needs to journey back to become one with the water? Of course not. The wave isn't separate from the ocean at all. It already is ocean, temporarily expressing itself in wave form. Think about the substance of that wave. Its entire being, everything it's made of, is nothing other than ocean water. The wave doesn't need to strive to reach the ocean or earn the right to be part of it. It is already one with the ocean, simply expressing as a unique formation for a brief moment before returning to the whole. This is the profound truth Jesus was revealing about you. You are not a human being trying desperately to reach God, struggling across some impossible distance to connect with something you lack. You are divine life temporarily expressing in human form. The journey isn't about becoming something you're not. It's about recognizing what has always been true, what you've always been beneath the conditioning that taught you to see yourself as separate and small. If this metaphor is beginning to reveal something about your true nature, write in the comments, "I am the wave and the ocean." Now here's what we've been missing for 2,000 years, the actual invitation Jesus was extending that got completely buried under layers of religious interpretation. His ministry wasn't about establishing himself as the one person who possessed an exclusive hotline to the Father, some unique spiritual privilege that separated him from the rest of humanity. It was precisely the opposite. He was demonstrating that this oneness, this consciousness of divine identity, is the natural state of every human being, not some rare achievement reserved for prophets and saints. His invitation was never, "Worship me as separate and special, as someone fundamentally different from what you are." It was always, "Recognize in yourself what I have recognized in myself." When Jesus declared, "I am the way," he wasn't asking you to walk behind him for the rest of your life. He was pointing to this consciousness of divine identity that he embodied and saying, "This is your way forward too. Not following behind me like a disciple trails a master, trying to imitate my external actions and hoping that somehow earns you favor, but becoming as I am, awakening to the same internal recognition, seeing what I see when I look at my own nature and yours." The transformation from follower to awakened being represents the shift from perpetual seeking to immediate recognition, from spiritual effort to natural expression. Behind the scenes of this understanding is something that one of the great mystical teachers, Joel Goldsmith, revealed that cuts straight to the heart of the human condition. Grasping your divine nature dissolves the root cause of all suffering, and that root cause is singular. It's not multiple issues that need addressing separately. It's one fundamental misperception from which everything else flows: the belief in separation. Let that sink in for a moment. Every experience of pain you've ever had, every moment of crippling anxiety, every sense of lack and limitation that's made you feel small and powerless, all of it stems from this single illusion that you're somehow disconnected from divine source. Think about the impact of living from this consciousness of separation. When you believe you're cut off from the source of life itself, everything becomes an exhausting struggle. You feel like you need to earn love because you don't recognize yourself as love's very expression. You fight desperately for resources because you can't see that abundance is your inheritance. You work tirelessly to prove your worth because you've forgotten that your value is inherent in what you are, not something you need to achieve. The decisions you make from this place of perceived separation create experiences that reinforce the very disconnection you fear, trapping you in cycles that feel impossible to break. If something shifted within you, a tap on the like button helps these teachings reach others searching for this deeper understanding right now. But here's the hidden truth that changes everything. When you begin living from the consciousness that the divine is your actual source and substance, not metaphorically but literally as the foundation of your being, your entire experience undergoes a fundamental shift. The journey transforms from desperate seeking into peaceful recognition, from trying to get something you believe you lack into allowing what's already present to express more fully through your awareness. If this revelation about separation being the root of suffering is beginning to make sense of your own experiences, write in the comments, "Separation is the illusion." Now let me show you something that will completely transform how you approach prayer and every challenge you face. Consider two people standing in the exact same difficult situation, maybe a health crisis, a financial emergency, or a relationship that's falling apart. Both are turning to the divine for help, but the consciousness behind their prayers couldn't be more different, and that difference determines everything about what they experience next. The first person, operating from the belief that divinity is distant and separate, naturally prays from that mindset. "Please, God, help me with this problem. I need you to intervene because I can't handle this alone. I'm powerless without you stepping in from somewhere outside this situation to fix what's broken." Every word reinforces the consciousness of separation, lack, and dependency on an external power that may or may not choose to help. The entire approach stems from the belief that divine assistance is something absent that needs to be summoned, earned, or convinced to show up. But someone who has awakened to what Jesus meant when he said, "You are God's," approaches the exact same situation from an entirely different consciousness. They're not begging an external deity for intervention or trying to make a compelling case for why they deserve help. Instead, their prayer becomes recognition. They acknowledge that divine wisdom isn't something distant they need to acquire or intelligence they lack that must be downloaded from heaven. It's already present within them as their true nature, as the very consciousness through which they're perceiving the situation. This isn't a subtle shift in wording that makes prayer sound more positive. It's a complete revolution in consciousness that changes the entire energy, the actual vibration, and the effectiveness of your spiritual practice. Think about the impact of this distinction on your daily life. Behind the scenes of these two approaches to prayer are fundamentally different decisions about what's true. One decision reinforces the illusion of separation and actually strengthens the very problem consciousness that created the challenge in the first place. The other dissolves separation and aligns you with the truth that transforms circumstances from the inside out. Here's where this becomes even more clear. Look at how Jesus approached healing throughout his ministry. He never begged God to intervene from some distant heaven, never pleaded for divine assistance as if it was something external to the situation that needed to be convinced to show up. Instead, he simply acknowledged divine presence right there in the moment, right there in the person, right there in the circumstance. He recognized a fundamental spiritual principle that changes everything when you truly grasp it. Where divine presence is acknowledged, wholeness must naturally express itself. Not because you're manipulating reality or using some magical technique, but because wholeness is the natural state when the illusion of separation dissolves. This wasn't miraculous in the supernatural sense we usually think about miracles, as if Jesus had some special power to bend the laws of the universe. It was the natural manifestation of spiritual law working through someone who fully understood his divine identity and could therefore see that same divine nature in everyone he encountered. The transformation he demonstrated wasn't about him being uniquely special in a way that separated him from humanity. It was about showing what becomes possible when any human being lives from recognition rather than separation consciousness. If you're beginning to see how the consciousness behind your prayers determines their power, write in the comments, "I choose recognition over begging." Now here's where this understanding becomes intensely practical and shifts everything about how you navigate your daily existence. Divine resources, wisdom, peace, clarity, creative solutions, strength in crisis, these aren't things you need to hunt down like treasure buried somewhere far away. They're not rewards you earn through enough good behavior or spiritual devotion. They're not even things you convince to come your way through the perfect prayer formula. They're your inheritance through the simple fact of relationship, and understanding this distinction changes the entire game. Think about how inheritance works in human families for a moment. A child doesn't wake up each morning begging their parents for their DNA, for their eye color, for the genetic traits that naturally pass from one generation to the next. These things are inherited automatically, transferred through relationship, itself without any effort or earning required. The child doesn't deserve them or fail to deserve them. They simply have them because of what the relationship is. The same principle applies to your relationship with Divine Source, but we've been conditioned to approach it backwards, as if we're spiritual orphans, desperately trying to earn what's already ours by nature. Behind the scenes of this misunderstanding is a belief system that's been drilled into most of us since childhood. We've been taught that divine qualities like peace, wisdom, abundance, and love are distant achievements we might attain someday if we work hard enough, pray fervently enough, sacrifice sufficiently. But when you grasp what Jesus meant by I am, you realize that divine life isn't something that might flow to you in the future if you finally become worthy enough. It's already flowing through you right now as your very consciousness, as the awareness reading these words in this moment. Divine wisdom isn't some distant quality you need to spend decades acquiring through spiritual practice and study. It's already present within you as your true mind, your original consciousness, before all the conditioning and false beliefs layered over it. The transformation this creates in your mindset is profound. You stop operating from lack consciousness, constantly trying to get something you believe you don't possess. Instead, you begin making decisions from recognition of what's already present, allowing it to express more fully through your awareness and actions. Most of us have been conditioned to accept limitation, struggle, fear, and scarcity as our default condition, our normal state of being human. We assume that peace is rare and distant, something requiring years of meditation retreats and spiritual practice to finally achieve. We believe wisdom is something we fundamentally lack, something that must be painfully accumulated through decades of hard experience and study. But Jesus' teaching flips this entire paradigm completely upside down. Peace is not a distant mountain peak you're climbing toward. It's your inheritance, your natural state as divine expression that's always present beneath the mental noise. Wisdom isn't something you're missing that needs to be gathered from outside sources. It's your birthright, flowing naturally from your divine nature when you stop blocking it with beliefs about your limitations. The same is true for abundance, joy, love, creativity, strength. All of these are aspects of your true nature right now, not distant goals you need to chase after or achievements you need to unlock through enough effort. If this is revealing how you've been looking at your spiritual resources backwards, write in the comments, "It's already mine." Now let me share something intensely practical that brings everything we've explored into your actual daily experience. This isn't about adding complicated spiritual practices to an already overwhelming schedule. The transformation happens through something so simple that most people overlook it precisely because they're searching for something more complex, more difficult, more worthy of the profound shift they're seeking. Begin by sitting quietly each morning for just 10 to 15 minutes before your day unfolds and demands pull you in different directions. This isn't meditation in the traditional sense, requiring special breathing techniques, mantras, or years of practice to get right. It's simply quiet recognition. Here's the revolutionary aspect that changes everything about this practice. You don't ask God for anything during this time. You're not presenting your wish list, not making requests, not trying to convince divinity to help you with your challenges. Instead, you're simply acknowledging what's already true in this moment. You might silently recognize, I am divine expression right now. My breath, my consciousness, My very being in this moment is divine life, expressing itself through this unique form. The impact of this simple shift in approach cannot be overstated. Behind the scenes of this practice, you're literally rewiring the consciousness from which you make every decision throughout your day. You're training your awareness to rest in recognition rather than straining in petition. Throughout your day, particularly in those moments when you feel yourself becoming anxious about outcomes or struggling against circumstances, pause for just a breath. Take one conscious inhale and exhale, then silently acknowledge divine intelligence is operating in this situation right now. Not, please let divine intelligence show up, but recognition that it's already present, already moving, already working through whatever's happening. This creates a remarkable shift you'll feel immediately. The weight of trying to control outcomes through limited human will alone begins to dissolve. You stop bearing the burden of figuring everything out by yourself, forcing solutions through sheer mental effort, or carrying the anxiety of whether things will work out. The transformation in how you experience challenges isn't subtle. It's tangible, practical, immediate. Your decisions begin flowing from a different place, not from fear and control, but from trust and recognition. Here's something I want you to understand about the fact that you're here right now, having stayed through this entire exploration. This isn't random. The fact that these words are resonating with something deep inside you, that you haven't clicked away to scroll through more superficial content, that something within you recognizes the truth we've been uncovering, that's significant. You're not accidentally stumbling upon spiritual teachings that challenge everything you've been taught. You're awakening to what has always been true about you, what Jesus was desperately trying to reveal when he declared, "I am." The hidden truth isn't about worshipping a distant deity from your knees. It's about recognizing the very nature of your own divine being that's been waiting your entire life to be acknowledged and expressed through your unique perspective and experience. If you're feeling the significance of this moment and this recognition, write in the comments, "This awakening was meant for me." If you've made it this far, I want you to know something. This conversation we've had matters to me. I share these insights every week because I've witnessed the profound transformation that happens when people finally understand what Jesus was actually revealing about divine identity. Not following from a distance, but recognizing within ourselves what he recognized within himself. If this exploration shifted something in how you see yourself and your relationship with the divine, I'd love for you to become part of this community by subscribing. Every video we create here goes deeper into these life-changing principles that most spiritual teachings overlook or misinterpret. We're not here to repeat what you've already heard 1,000 times. We're uncovering the hidden truths that actually transform how you experience existence. And if something within you truly resonated as we explored the real meaning behind I am, let me know you made it to the end by simply writing in the comments, "I recognize my divine nature." That way, I know this message found the right person at the right time, because these aren't random encounters. You're here for a reason. That gentle tap on the like button also helps these teachings reach others who might be searching for exactly this understanding right now, wondering if there's more to spirituality than the separation consciousness they've been taught. There's a video right here that takes this understanding even deeper, exploring how to actually live from this divine consciousness when facing real challenges and difficult decisions. Click and continue with me there as we uncover more of what it truly means to embody I am in your everyday life.